The Electoral College is a creaky system that we would be unlikely to adopt if we were drafting a constitution today. But it makes a modest contribution toward moderating and nationalizing our politics, and it has the advantage of being familiar, if not necessarily loved. We could do worse. Well, not a ringing endorsement, and there are some things there. I'm not sure about this claim about moderating and nationalizing our politics, and I suppose we could do worse, but we could do better. And I do agree, I think Brody's system would be an improvement on the Electoral College. But I would say this, that I think we came close to repealing the Electoral College in 2005. We came close, but not quite. And what would have, I think, led to the repeal of the Electoral College in 2005 would have been John Kerry in Ohio in 2004. John Kerry lost Ohio, I believe, by 60,000 votes. It was fairly close. If John Kerry had won Ohio, he would have been elected president, and we would have had 2 successive elections where the popular vote winner had lost the Electoral College. The Democrats would have been screwed in 2000. The Republicans would have been screwed in 2004. I think there is a very good chance, frankly, that then both major political parties say, okay, this isn't working anymore. Let's do away with this system. It's too bad it didn't happen in my view. Like I said, I favor repeal of the Electoral College. The National Popular Vote Compact, I favor. Simply because it's only fair that every individual's vote should be counted equally, which does not occur with the Electoral College. The people of Wyoming have several times the power of people in larger states regarding their effect on the selection of the president. In 2016, we had a candidate for president who got 3 million, roughly, more votes than Donald Trump, but she lost the presidential election. Of course, that happened in 2000. There have been several occasions of this. 2020 was a close call in that regard. I believe the number is something like 110,000 votes. In Arizona, Wisconsin, and what's the third state? I forget the third state. But there were 3 states that were very close, that if Donald Trump had won those states, he would have been re-elected president, yet we would have had 6 million plus, knocking on the door of 7 million more individuals in this nation voting for Joe Biden for president than Donald Trump. Political scientists have analyzed this. They say basically that in 1 out of 3 presidential elections, that's close, and I'm not sure how to define close, but 1 out of 3 presidential elections that is a close popular vote will have the popular vote winner lose the Electoral College. And at the end of the day, my question is, to supporters of the Electoral College, how is this just? How is it just that 3 million or 6 million more individuals vote for this person, yet that person gets elected? In my opinion, it's not just. We are the only democracy in the world that elects their chief executive in this manner. Nobody else does this. Nobody else does this, and we can learn some things from other nations, and we should learn that. If this election method is so great, why don't we elect the governor of Illinois that way? Why don't we have electoral votes from the 102 counties in Illinois in some sort of system like this? But we don't elect in this nation. We don't conduct elections in any other election in the entire nation like we do for president. And one thing, I am surprised, frankly, at the libertarian support for the Electoral College. Winner-take-all voting. Winner-take-all voting is what props up the 2 old parties and keeps the Libertarians and the Greens and the Constitutions and the Working Family Party out in the political wilderness in this nation. And it's winner-take-all voting that does that. And the Electoral College is the worst, absolute worst manifestation of winner-take-all voting in this nation. But there's a more fundamental problem, I think. I think the Electoral College is illibertarian because it treats groups of people as more important than individuals. I think that is illibertarian. Again, I think we vote on too much. I think there's too much that is decided in the political arena that should not be. I understand that. We need to have rights protected by a constitution and the statutes of this nation as well. But I just do not see why the importance of groups as opposed to the votes of individuals is so important in electing the president. And I also want to, Brian, I've got to bring this up because issues. This is regarding, I'm going to read the definition of a republic from Merriam-Webster.com. I had a conversation with Richard Winger about this today, and I just want to read the definition of a republic here. It says, a government having a chief of state who is not a monarch and who in modern times is usually a president. And it says a political unit, such as a nation, having such a form of government. Then it goes on to B, a government in which supreme power resides in a body of citizens entitled to vote and is exercised by elected officers and representatives responsible to them and governing according to law. And then it says a political unit having such a form of government. And so I understand your point, but I do think too much is made in the United States between, oh, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. You read that definition, that sounds pretty close to a democracy, and it's really most correct to say that we live in a democratic republic in the United States, because ultimately, and I do support initiatives and referendum, by the way, because I think the citizens need a route to effect reforms that goes around the legislature, at least in those issues in which the legislature has a conflict of interest, including ballot access laws, including other election laws. I'm all for protecting individual rights, but there's really not that much difference between a republic and a democracy. It's most correct to say we are a democratic republic. And with that, we can go.
All right, thank you, Bill. William, I'm sorry, William. All right. Since Brody, you were the first to present your views, why don't you chime in and the Brian can. I mean, we can have a pretty much open discussion here between the panelists. Whoever wants to chime in.
Okay, well, let me just first lead off with this. I spend my day teaching kids, so it's nice to be around adults and to have these conversations. It's quite refreshing. So, I think both Bill and Brian, you bring up some excellent points. And I'll be honest, I can't really disagree with any one of you. I think both you guys have hit the nail on the head. Bill, I think your first pass the post conversation, excuse me, is hypercritical. It is amazing that, and I agree with you, it's amazing that the Libertarian Party does not take a stance against the electoral college, because it harms us, right? It's unfair that we can have a system where 51% of the population of the state goes one way and is rewarded everything, while 49% is left out in the cold. So, excuse me, I agree with you on that. Brian, I think you have some great points too. I'm with you 100% that it should, the state should have a larger say in how the electoral college is delegated. You are correct. We are a union, right? A union of states. So what ends up happening is we are all parts. The federal government is made up of us. Therefore, we are more important than they are. So overall, I can't really disagree. I think both you guys bring up great points, and I would be willing to, of course, flow discussion. I think this is great.
Yeah. So, I think just a brief and kind of cursory my understanding of the transition from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution, right, is that the Articles of Confederation was a very loose-knit structure. The federal government had virtually no power, and they had to revise the Articles of Confederation after, I think, Shays' Rebellion, where George Washington went and crushed the rebellion on a collect tax.
Yes, yes. I'm with you. I teach history, so I
yeah. So the Constitution was established to give the federal government more power, but to protect the rights of the people and the sovereignty of the sovereign powers of the state, right? The state, gave certain powers to the federal government, and the people gave certain powers to the federal government. But the structure itself is an allocation of power. It's basically that when it comes to matters of health, welfare, and police, that those are areas within the purview of the state. The federal government needs to stay out of it. You know, election laws are at the state level and at the federal level. The federal government can, you know, either do whatever it does to challenge it. So the states ultimately decide how to allocate their electoral colleges. So I would say if you're going to take issue with the electoral college, I mean, to Bill's point of, you know, where Wyoming citizens have a greater voice in the federal government or the election of presidents than somebody from rural Illinois, because of the way it's counted, right? You get two for the senators, and then one for every congressional district within the state, right? I mean, that's the allocation. So it's those two from the senators that give disproportionate power to the voters of Wyoming. Now, that is a fundamental feature of the structure of the United States, that the states have sovereignty, and the states have certain authorities that has not been ceded to the federal government, and in that authority includes the authority to decide the election. The electoral college, the counting, is in the Constitution, right? I mean, you can't pass a law. You need to change the Constitution. So I sit here and I say to myself, why is it, after 250 years, the electoral college is now a problem, where it's never been a problem before? And it's because we have the parties that don't represent the people. They don't govern with the consent of the people. So they come up with these, this is a charade. What are you changing? Okay, so take away the two for the senators, right? Call a constitutional convention, amend the Constitution, and take away those two extra seats because of the senators. Fundamentally change the structure of the United States government and the allocation of power between the state and the federal government. That's what we're talking about.
Well,
this is crazy.
Well,
we don't need to do this. We don't need to get money out of politics. We don't need to do away with the electoral college. We don't need to turn limits. We don't need any of this stuff. We need to stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. The people that don't govern with our consent. I don't think
Brian, I'm sorry, Brian,
all these wars and drug wars and all this other bullshit. I don't think that. Like,
Brian, I'm sorry.
I'm being stolen from. I'm being,
Brian,
you know, threatened. I'm being coerced. This is the problem. It's not the structure of the United States. The structure of the United States is just fine.
Well, you said a lot there, but the main thing I want to say is you assert that the Republicans and Democrats don't represent the American people. Frankly, I think they do. They do represent they've been elected. That we have a two-party system. I'll grant you that the election system generally channels people's support into the lesser of two evils. But I'll admit, libertarians, we're a political minority in a winner-take-all system. That's why we don't have any people in the state house. That's why we don't have people in Congress. If we had a multi-party system, we had some sort of proportional voting system and multi-member legislative districts, we would probably have people in Springfield. We would have people in Washington. The Republicans and Democrats are in power right now, and we're out basically because the American people like big government. You are absolutely wrong, to be perfectly blunt. You are wrong to assert that these people don't represent the American people like big government. We're a political minority. I wish we were in the majority. I wish we had every seat, and I wish we had the White House and 535 seats. But I hate to say it, but they really do represent the American people who used to talk. They don't even talk a good game of limited government anymore. But they used to talk a game of limited government, but they like big government operationally. And there has been a history of problems with the Electoral College on and off over the years. I'll grant you that the great majority of the time, the popular vote winner has synced up with the Electoral College winner, but there have been problems from the 19th century and going back as well. So it's not just a problem today.
And then we'll open it up.
So I just want to say, the presidency and the vice presidency and the Senate and the House, if libertarians control that, we probably be just as corrupt as those motherfuckers, man. As soon as we got the money, if people start doing shit, people are people, man, you know what I mean? It's the power that corrupts, right? We need to take the power away. It doesn't do to the people. People are going to steal. People are going to do shit, and people are people. Besides that, it's not just representation, it's consent. That governments were not formed derive their just power from the consent of the government. It's not representative. Just because I have the opportunity to vote for somebody doesn't mean that I consent to all their policies. I don't. So, according to the Declaration of Independence, this government is completely different. I mean, they do not govern by consent. They govern by threat. You got a chance to vote for us, yes or no, A or B, name the poison, and that's the end of it. That's the end of your representation. You get choice A or B, and both of them are going to fuck you in the ass. So that's the option that we have. And so that's representation. Well, okay, maybe it's representation because I'm afforded the opportunity to vote for somebody else over again myself. But they don't govern with consent. Their powers are not just. And changing the electoral college is not going to change that. And the procedural method, you would have to call a constitutional convention. And once the constitutional convention is called, who do you think is going to make the fucking new amendment? The Democrats or the Republicans and all their fucking lobbying groups, they're going to sit around and figure out just a right word that they can fucking stick it in our ass again. I don't, any time that, any politician or media starts talking about amending the Constitution, getting money out of politics, electoral college, nah. I don't want these people nowhere near amending the Constitution. I don't want to form a constitutional convention. This is the dumbest thing we could ever do. Just my opinion. There's a list of dumb things we could do. That's the top.